Are you the ignored middle child? Alright, let's see if we can fix that in today's episode. Let's roll. Hello and welcome to another episode of The HEMA Show. I, like always, am your host Stuart, and this is edited by Andy. Say hi, Andy. I'm assuming you've just sworn at me discreetly in the corner of the room. Fine, not a problem. Let's roll into it. So today's episode is kind of about that sticky phase of your... Oh god, that sounds disgusting. Probably should rephrase that. The intermediate phase, the awkward phase. So what I'm talking about today is once you are past beginner stage, and there's typically 3 stages of your journey of sword fighting, kind of 3 stages of anything martial really. You have your beginner stage where you know buckle, and that's your beginner's courses, maybe your first couple of lessons with a coach or anything like that. And then you have the 3rd stage, which is where you are fairly autonomous in what you're doing. You're competing, you're what you would consider high level, whether you are actually high level is a different matter altogether, but you're confident, you are autonomous, you're doing your own thing, and you're capable of self-discovery and so on and so forth. It's that awkward middle phase that we're looking at today, middle child syndrome. Almost. So what can you do to combat that intermediate stage? Because that is the point where you can kind of get a little bit ignored and you can struggle. And being a club owner and head coach as well, this is, from my point, the hardest bits. So you first join a fencing club or HEMA club or any other club really, and you do your beginner's course. You have a lot of intensive one-on-one time with the coach, going through the basics, basically because the coach doesn't really want you to void their insurance if anything happens. You go through the beginner's course, it's all good, it's all gravy, it's all grand, and then you're kind of left out into the big, wide open HEMA world. I'm free! And it's very common that you get this huge injection of entertainment and information right at the start. You finish it and then you kind of go, but what do I do now? And that's a really awkward phase, and that's where, as a club owner, we see the highest rate of attrition in member drop-off. So they get past the beginner stage, and the people that aren't highly motivated get through that and go, a bit bored now, and then you will start to see a little bit of member attrition. And also for you, it can be the hardest bit of what to do now. You've just had a huge amount of structured tuition. You've had a huge amount of structured lessons going on, and you're sat there thinking, right, well, I'm left to my own devices now, what do I do? You kind of fight, maybe. So this is kind of guiding you towards helping yourself and also how to get the most out of your club when you are in that period of training. It's, to a certain degree, it's probably the most entertaining if you know what you're doing, because there's a huge amount of discovery that goes on, whereas the later stages is more about honing down what you do know. But it can also be the most frustrating and the most lonely part of your HEMA journey, for a lack of a better term. So basically, you finish your beginner's course, you come back the next week and it's, what do I do? First and foremost, I would recommend just get some hours on piste. Get some fighting, get smacking, and enjoy yourself. Have a couple of fights, try, and it's very common that people that are either beginners or done beginners courses or fairly new kind of stick to the same little pool of people. When you are in that intermediate stage, in that next step on stage, it's really important that you fight more people, more varied people. You probably, it's easier said than done, but you want to go and approach the biggest, hardest people in the club. Hardest. The better fighters, the more accomplished fighters. Not because you're stepping up to them or anything stupid like that, but you need to acid test your abilities. You need to figure out where you're at, what you're going to do. You need to establish your baseline, because the beginner's course is kind of a false metric. So establish your new baseline. I would say maybe have 2 or 3 weeks just scrapping. Get out there, fight as many and as varied people as you can. Don't shy away from the scary good people. They are the ones that are going to give you the most feedback. Whether they want to give you feedback, like physically talking to you, is a different matter. But the results from the fights will give you a huge amount of impact. So that's the first thing I would do. Have a couple of weeks fighting. 2 weeks, 3 weeks if you don't get bored. Definitely 2 weeks. Really important. What you're looking for with that is you're looking for any common denominators. Don't worry about self-coaching, self-education, self-analysis, or anything like that. Just look for shit that's common. Are you losing tons? Probably yes, really. You're fresh off the beginner's course and you're fighting experienced people. You're going to lose. It's fine. Don't have an ego about it. If you have an ego about this intermediate stage, that's when you're going to have problems. Secondly, think about where you're being hit. Are your hits hurting as well? So think of the context of the hits. Are they hurting? Chances are that probably means you're getting a bit close, and that's a very, very common fault for someone when they first are left to their own devices to a certain degree. You take what little you do know and you put it under a microscope and it gets bigger. So generally what should be a normal cut kind of turns into a step in and absolutely cane them. So are your hits hurting? Probably you might want to start thinking about very, very basic distance exercises. Secondly, think about where you're getting hit. And really, really, really basic shit, okay? I'm not telling you, in-depth analysis at all. Divide yourself into a child's drawing of a window, a square with an X through it. Those are your quadrants. And just name them. 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever works for you. Tom, Dick, Harry, Jeff, I don't know. Whatever works for you. And just try and notice what quadrant you're getting hit in the most. That will just start to give you a little bit of feedback of your positioning. Is your positioning off? Are your guard positions kind of a little janky or anything like that? That's really important feedback. So start to think about those quadrants, divide yourself up into 4. Really just try and pay attention. Don't analyze. You're not ready for that. But just pay attention. And this is what it's all about, is just pay attention to where you're getting hit. That's really, really important. That will give you some good feedback. Secondly, pay attention to your hands. They'll probably get hit. Okay, if your hands start getting hit, you just need to move the sword about a little bit. Also, pay attention to the fact of, are you getting hit because you're stood there like a deer in headlights, just like, what do I do, what do I do, what do I do, smack. Okay, cool. Or are you getting hit because you're trying stuff and it's not working? The latter is better. It's better to try, but it is very common for people to kind of just not get out of neutral when they're new to it. I know this is coming from someone with experience and confidence, but even if you don't have confidence, you really just need to get going. And even if you're not going to fight, if you're not going to progress in the fight, go forwards and attack them, you're going to lose anyway. So what's the difference between losing if you're not doing anything and losing if you're trying something? You might as well die with your boots on. So that's a really key thing. Think about if you are getting hit because you're staying still and you're either not sure of how to start or you're just not starting. You're not coming out of that neutral position. Or are you actually attacking and trying to do something? It's just not working because you've not got the muscle memory or the experience yet. Try and be the latter. You will be one of the two. You're not going to get that many results very early on. And honestly, in the intermediate stages, or early intermediate stages at least, if you are getting results, you are probably punching below your weight. Really, you need to be getting your head kicked in for a good 2 to 3 weeks so that you can kind of figure out what losing is. That's really, really important. If you're winning, I mean, you're going to win the odd match, hopefully. But if you're winning more often than you're not, or at least fairly evenly, you might be punching below your weight. You really need to push yourself higher and higher. So that's really important. So we're talking about progress and things you can do to stop that being boring. But that's only half the story. The other half of the story is the club should be supporting you. Now, any good club has a coach. There are clubs out there that don't have coaches. Coming from a professional sporting background, that's just weird to me. It kind of feels like a lawless Wild West. And also, bear in mind, at the moment, coach in the HEMAverse is a very subjective term. So we have an awful lot of coaches, masters, maestros in this country, far more than we probably should do. So just bear in mind that there may not be the checks and balances in place at the moment in this country. But there should be a coach, or there should be someone in a position of authority to help guide your learning. If you are paying your membership, you are paying for them. You are paying to be paid attention to. So be paid attention to. It's very easy to get into your club nights and go, no, I'm new. I'm not entitled to the same attention as these hyper competitive guys. You absolutely are, if not more so. So you really need to get your money's worth out of your coach or out of your club leader. That's super important. You need to make sure that you're bugging them, ask them, have a fight. Go up to Matters and be like, I lost, obviously. I got hit here quite a lot. Can you maybe watch my next fight and tell me why? All you need to do is get your coach just to watch you, or even get an experienced fighter that you maybe trust, or even if you don't know them that well, if they seem to be fighting well, just be like, would you mind just watching my next fight? And most people will do, because we've all been new. No one's come into this hobby world champion. Nobody's come in a gold medalist. We've all had to be a beginner in one way or another, even if we've come from other sports like fencing or M1 or anything like that. We all come in new to HEMA, so we all have to change gear. So we all know what it's like to be a beginner. So please do ask more experienced members just to watch your fights and just give you a few pointers. You will be amazed at how much advice, friendly advice there is out there. Now, whether that friendly advice is any good or not is a different matter. But there, as well as what we were discussing prior, things that you can do to get the most out of your intermediate phase, there should be some sort of functionality offered by the clubs. The coach is the biggest one. Secondly, think about, does your club have a grading system? This is really helpful for the intermediates to help guide your learning. We have a grading system that's fairly new at Smart HEMA, and we're finding that it's giving a little bit of guidance or more guidance to the intermediate guys. So that's really helpful. Does your club have a grading system of some description? I would really recommend that. It's a very good way just to help your intermediate learning and kind of fill that initial void when you come fresh off of the beginner's phase. So that's really, really handy. The next thing is actually make sure you're paid attention to. It's very easy when you're doing a beginner's course. We're buggers for it. Honestly, us coaches, we're absolute buggers for it. We'll coach people in the corner of the room because that's where it's safest. We can make sure you guys are safe. We can make sure other people aren't getting in the way or anything like that. Beginners courses tend to happen in a slightly isolated part of the hall, just so we can be heard or anything like that. And then you come off of it and you're like, okay, well, this is my corner, I'm going to stay here. And then you're in an intermediate and you're there for weeks going, oh, I'm in my corner. And you're not integrating with the clubs. So really do, I know we're so British about it, okay, but just get out there, introduce yourselves. Offer the ref. I know you're not going to be any good, but that's how you learn. Or just ask, do you mind if I watch? You can even scrap with them. So just get out of your corner and go and talk to people and go and get fights, interact with other club members. That's how you will grow. As a member of that club, in that social context, you'll get to know people, but you'll pick up a hell of a lot. So those are my recommendations. Pay attention, basically. Really, the whole first section is pay attention. Don't just do your beginner's course and go, cool, right, I'm a HEMA-ist now. Wacka, 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 wacka. And then go home and be like, So just pay attention, get as much context as you can. And then secondly, just make sure your club is equipped. Use the coach, use any grading systems, integrate with existing membership, and competitive fighters are good. So use those resources because you are just as entitled to them as anyone else in the club, if not more entitled, because you will benefit from it more in these early stages. Just be aware that some people are dicks. So if you kind of get a dicky vibe from someone, please don't feel that you're an intermediate, so you'll be like, well, I've got to deal with this. Okay, no, it's a hobby, it's something you should enjoy. If someone is a clear and present cockhole, then please don't spend time with them. Yeah, there are lots of people out there that have great information that will want to help you, so don't feel like you're stuck. If you are in a position where you are stuck with just a band of wangers, then reach out in socials. There's Facebook pages, there are maybe other clubs in the area, there are YouTube videos. So, reach out. There is a wider community that you can get involved with. Anyway, I hope that helps. So let's switch over to the question and answers. Okay, So today's question comes from, again, someone who would like to remain anonymous. They did send me their name, but out of respect, and you'll see why, I'm going to keep them anonymous. So apologies if you did want your name mentioned in this, but it's being a bit nice for a change. So the question is, how do I get my coach's attention? This seemed to tally up quite nicely with today's video, actually. So I kind of chose this one because it worked nicely. And the reason why I wanted to keep this person anonymous is it kind of seems like their coach is either negligent or not interested in them, or maybe out of their depth. It does happen. So how do you get your coach's attention? That is a fucker of a question, really. First and foremost, I would say figure out why you're not getting the attention. Is it a you problem or is it a them problem? What I mean by that is, are you keeping yourself to yourself? Are you turning up, doing what you're told to do, and then staying to yourself and then going home? Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so are you rocking up? Are you keeping yourself to yourself and then going home? Don't forget, us coaches are still mere mortals. So we are prone to forgetfulness, stupidity, unorganization, and just downright dumbassery. And it is very common for coaches to, on a club night, we have loads of people we need to look out for. Looking out for this person, looking out for that person, looking out for this person, blah, 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 blah. It's very obvious just to be like, okay, this person is not being a pain in my ass. Good on you. And then deal with shit over here. Whereas actually the person who's not being a pain in the ass kind of gets forgotten about, and that might be what the case is here. So first and foremost, just ask, is it a you problem? Are you being maybe a little bit too invisible? Are you maybe being a little bit quiet? If that's the case, just chirp up. Just be like, excuse me, this week, can I have a little bit of attention? Or would you mind looking at this fight? Or I'm struggling with this. Can I get some advice? Go to your coach and say, give them an actionable thing. So don't be like, oh, I feel like you've been ignoring me a little bit, because there's nothing really that comes off of that. You'll get a coach going, oh shit, I'm sorry, dude, I'll try better. Hopefully, if they're a decent person. They might be a complete twat and ignore you. But don't give them something where they can be like, oh yeah, sorry, I'll keep an eye. Get something that requires a result. Something like, would you mind watching this fight? Or, I've been struggling with X, what do you recommend? Or, I've been stagnating a little bit, what would you recommend as a next step? Get some sort of advice that requires them to stop, think, more importantly, think about you, and then get that feedback directly from them. That way, what you're doing is you're just stopping their weekly momentum and going, oh, I need to pay attention to Bert. Hello, Bert. Okay, cool. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. This is what I recommend. Fucking Bert. Okay, so that is a really, really good way. Get a actionable question out to them. Secondly, is it a coach problem? Is your coach overworked? Is your coach too thinly stretched, maybe? Is your coach capable? Okay, obviously, I try and hire as many coaches. In my clubs, I generally have head coach, 2 up, and then trainee. Now, head coach, obviously. 2 up is the second in command, assistant coach. And then the trainee is someone who I'm, geez, I have to be careful how I say this on the internet, someone who I'm grooming.
What did he say?
For coaching in the future. That's the way I typically run my clubs. That way I've always got a coach being progressed. So there should be at least 3 members of staff in any one of my clubs that any one of my members can talk to. We typically run between, Christ, these days, nearly 20 to 30 members per night. So that means there's 1 coach and staff per 10 people, give or take. We have highs and lows, obviously. So we have a fairly good ratio. So just maybe take note of how many coach and staff there are and have a look at how many people there are. It might be a case of they've just got so much to do. The other way, are they at the limit of their knowledge? Are they a hobbyist that's electing to run a club and as default they've kind of grandfathered themselves into a coach's role? If that's the case, you might be asking too much of them, and maybe a little bit independent study or further research is required, maybe away from them, and then just kind of fact check with them when you can get their attention. This is what I've been doing, this is what I've been looking at, this is what I've been researching, is this okay? Is this on point? That's generally a better way of doing it as well. And finally, I'm going to fanny about actually, is your coach shit? There are some shit coaches. There are. This kind of done. I'm not going to mention names because that would be a dick move. Fuck, why am I always destroying the set? There are some shit coaches out there. I'm not going to name names because that would not be cool. But just think and look and be like, actually, is this guy fucking motorbikes, honestly? Is this guy telling me the right stuff? Is this person actually any good at coaching? Now, don't get me wrong. Bad coaches can be good fighters. And likewise, on the transverse, good fighters can be terrible at giving advice. Coaching is a skill. Okay? The ability to impart knowledge, regardless of what that knowledge is a skill in itself, just like fighting. So you need to be able to understand how you teach people, how you break things down, how you knock down barriers for that one particular student. You need to be able to look at every single student as a unique case. You need to be able to problem solve on an individual basis to be a good coach. Now, not everybody can do that. And you may get some incredibly accomplished fighters, and really, really good fighters, but they're just crap at coaching. Maybe they don't have the personal skills, maybe they don't have the time, they don't have the patience, they don't have the training to go, okay, what you need to do is this, break it down, do this bit, get this bit right first, and then move on to this. They might just be like, just fucking do it properly. So, is your coach capable of teaching you? And if not, then that might be the case that you're being ignored by your coach. If that's the case, then you really got a problem and you maybe want to think about a newer club. And if there's not one near you, then I don't know, maybe start thinking further education somewhere else if possible. But yeah, honestly, if you're being ignored by the coach or you feel that you're not getting enough attention from them, chances are they're just being dumb. I do it all the bloody time. I did it this week, accidentally. I forgot to talk to one of my members who I meant to talk to. We do it with coaches. We're humans, we're people. We are stupid by nature. So yeah, don't attribute to malice anything that can be explained by stupidity, would be my case. If it's a persistent, reoccurring problem, then yes, that may be something that needs addressing in the short run, in the long term. But yeah, just figure out if it's a you problem, you being too introverted, or if it's a them problem, they're not up to scratch. But yeah, please don't be afraid to go and get help from a coach. Failing that, a fighter that you trust or a fighter that seems accomplished, just talk to them, see if you can get some information from them. But just remember, when you're talking to fighters, sometimes they're not the best teachers. Hope that helps. Anyway, catch you later. Bye. I haven't fucked up too much. I'm not giving you much for the B-roll today. That being said, I have just forgotten what the question was. Fuck. What was the question?